So welcome everyone. On today's dev call, I'd like to present SDK 3.0, which was actually released yesterday. And yeah, I'd like to showcase it here. But also we are working on a next version, 3.1. And yeah, we'll add extra features in that version and be able to respond to your feedback. So any feedback is welcome. Okay, so we released SDK 3.0. This version introduces much improved wizard mode for the SDK, as well as some additional features. And the release was mostly possible thanks to support from Soldevelo and three guys, Pavel, Adam, and Tomasz. So applause for them. And they are still working on the next version of SDK, and that will be out by the next week, hopefully. So in order to set up SDK for the first time, you'll need Maven 3 on your machine and Java. You can learn about all the requirements going to OpenMRS SDK wiki page. SDK wiki, which was updated today to the latest 3.0 version. And there is the installation. Also the setup command. So when you want to start using SDK and you haven't used it before, just run this command, and it should say that all went okay and it's ready to use. When you use SDK before, you may need to update it to the latest version. It can be done just by typing OpenMRS SDK, for example, help, and using the minus U so in the group. And should that is trying to fetch some data from, and also that here OpenMRS SDK 3.00. So I'm running the latest version. Actually, the help command is a command that you can use to display all other commands with a short description. But let's consider the simple use case. Let's use the SDK to set up a server. With SDK, you can have as many OpenMRS instances as you want, and also you can work with SDK with modes. The very basic mode, which is wizard mode. You simply type OpenMRS SDK setup, and you will be asked questions regarding what you actually want to do. Specify parameters for working in a batch mode. For example, server. I can specify server ID, which is how I want to name my server, and I won't be asked for that later. Doing the command. It is useful when you want to automate, for example, running a server or deploying some modules. So have the parameter when you type SDK help, and also go to the page. But you not see like from using the wizard. The wizard is actually also helpful for experienced developers. You don't have to remember about all the parameters. So you start from naming your server, and then you have two choices when you run the setup command. You can either set up a distribution or a platform. the more complex is the distribution. So here you can see that the SDK used Maven to find out what distributions are available, and here we list only reference application distributions, and it is what we currently have configured. So I can see here the latest snapshot and the last 3 releases of reference application. And you can simply type a number and set up the server and the reference application you want. But also you can provide your artifact package ID, package artifact ID and version pointing to a specific distribution, and it's what we also introduced in so the distribution is basically which contains this properties all describe the distribution. Let me just show how it is done for the reference application. You can basically do the same for any other distribution you can imagine. So you just and I put in source main resources OpenMRS properties file, and it is looking for that file to figure out what versions of OpenMRS core and are what versions of OMODs are required to run this distribution. And also there are some extra parameters, like we say that this distribution doesn't support H2. You have to have MySQL installed. And this is actually something introduced in 3.1. You can specify the initial database which you want to load when you set up the server, so that you, for example, have all the tables created and you don't have to run the whole SQL and the whole screen. So this is available in 2.0, but will be very soon. And so this is one way of creating a distribution. Another way is simply, if you don't have a Maven project, like this is Open Web project, and it's not distributed as Maven artifact, then you just put the same file here, and you can also install a distribution. It's a nice way of having a very straightforward way to put all required modules that are for this specific project. So for example, for running Open Web App Concept Dictionary, you need OpenMRS 1.11.5, UI Framework, UI Commons, and the OVA module. And this is all configured here. And it's very easy to install using the setup command. So back to command line. Artifact, so I can OpenMRS reference application package for in the screen, and it doesn't. Okay, so let me just do that and instead select something that's predefined. So server choose distribution, and now I can, for example, choose reference application 3.1. When I choose a snapshot version, I will also so choosing a snapshot version that also, and basically what happens is reference application artifact determine what versions are declared in and we almost defined in for that version, even snapshot ones. So for the reference application to work, we need the MySQL database, and OpenMRS SDK can create MySQL database for you. But yes, you have to have the MySQL software pre-installed on your computer. And next, what is nice is that you can specify JDK to use. As you know, for OpenMRS platform 2.x, you have to have Java 8. And for older version, you have to have Java 7. So JDK allows you to run your server with the correct version of JDK. So in here, I'm setting up reference application. So it uses 1.11.5 and requires Java 7. And currently, in version 3.0, we only verify that you run the correct JDK when running the server. In OpenMRS SDK 3.1, we introduced as verification step to make sure that when you create a server, when you set up a server, you also select the correct JDK. So this is coming, but for now, I just pick the JDK 7. And the server is created. The server is created under users Rafał OpenMRS my server. So all SDK servers are stored under your profile and OpenMRS, and each server has a separate directory named after server ID. So the next thing you may want to do is, for example, work on a module. I have web services REST cloned, and I can easily deploy that module to my server by just saying OpenMRS SDK deploy. I'm doing it from the web services REST directory, and I can simply say deploy SDK being run from services. So it will ask me to, first it asks me for the server ID on which I want to deploy this module. So I just created my server, so I really want to deploy it to my server, I type 1. And then it asks me, would you like to deploy web services REST 2.5 15 snapshots from the current directory? And I say yes. And this is the next step of verification. And this simply deploys that module. So, when I run the OpenMRS system, I will say that it is using the latest version from my the latest from code. Also, OpenMRS SDK deploy, when you run it from any directory, not necessarily the project, you have a chance to first you also select the server ID, and then it asks you what would you like to deploy. And we have 4 choices. We can deploy a module, open web app, distribution, and platform. And for example, I can say module and specify group ID, artifact ID, which may be, for example, OVA for open web apps. Then it communicates with Maven repository and determines what versions are available. I can install, deploy the latest version, for example. And this will automatically download the OVA from Maven repository, deploy it to your server. Okay, and also before we actually run the server, we can also create our own module. We renamed slightly the commands used in SDK. So, for example, we previously had install, we now have deploy. We had create platform module or create module. We now have create project. It is mainly due to that we want to support creating different projects or deploying different types of things, like we can deploy now a module or open web app. And this create projects asks you if you want to create platform module or reference application module. With time, we can add more here. For sure, we'll add creating open web app. But for now, we have platform and reference application module. And yeah, so I'm running the reference application. I can create the reference application module. This still uses the old archetypes which were available in SDK 2.x. And in 3.1, we'll slightly improve those to be more descriptive. And yeah, basic. So, something. It's possible that I had basic module before. Basic module. What was the remove command? Okay, now let me just
rmdir.
With a different name. Or unique. I see this is not very clear, and we are working on improving it. Okay. And now when I go to the build, and so you can combine different tasks in the same command, run the build, and also deploy produce artifacts to a server. Okay, and I haven't specified server ID, so I am asked for the server. And then it's deployed. And next, you'll probably want to actually run the server. And what has changed in the run command is that we are now using Tomcat instead of Jetty. And also we are running Tomcat in a forked process. It means that we have more control over what JDK is used to run the server and what are the memory settings. And also we can easily enable remote debugging for the Tomcat. And also we've added a feature to support Spring Reload, which allows to live reload classes in APR or OMOD subdirectories of your module, so that you don't have to restart or redeploy the module when you make changes in your code. So this is nice. Okay, so I see that it's forking a new process and it's starting up the server. This will actually, when I run it the first time, it will have to run all the liquid-based chain sets. So it will take quite a while. So I will leave it running in the background. If I go basically to localhost 8080, I can see that the process started and it's in progress, and it will take quite a while. In version 3.1, as I mentioned before, we'll be importing the SQL script before running the installation wizard, so that all tables are created and the liquid-based chain set also are executed, so that here in this installation wizard you will not have to wait for that to happen. Okay, so this is what's already available, and this is what's is underway. Basically, in OpenMRS SDK 3.1, by the way, we have a sprint going on, and this is you can find it going to Agile and the SDK board, and this is the current state. I'm hoping will be done by the end of this week or beginning of the next week, and we'll do the release by the end of next week. And the features that are coming is OpenMRS SDK build, which basically allows you to build all watch modules. So you can configure your server to watch a number of projects cloned on your machine. Like, for example, we have some support for watching projects in the current version of SDK. I can go to CD services REST. and say Maven OpenMRS SDK watch. And this will add this project to list of watch projects for this server. So I specify my server, and now when I my list watch project, I can see it's listed here, and with the exact path to the code on my machine. Currently, it serves as a way for configuring UI framework. So if I add Web Services REST, actually Web Services REST is a bad example, but any module which uses UI framework, when I add it to watched projects, I basically configure my server to use the UI framework development mode, so that all UI changes which I make in code are reflected on the server when running the server without redeploying the module. We'll expand this in SDK 3.1 to also support building modules. So when I construct a list of watched projects for a specific server, I can then run the OpenMRS SDK build command, and I will be able to build all versions of modules that are on my local disk and deploy them to the server with that command. Next, what's coming is the OpenMRS SDK clone. This will ask you for artifact ID of a module, and it will go to Maven repository, check the SCM URL, which will be then used to clone the correct repository on your machine. What it will also do, it will ask for your GitHub credential, and it will be able to fork the project for you if you haven't forked it before, and configure the upstream and origin remotes for your GitHub for your Git clone. So this will automate cloning. Next, we'll have the OpenMRS SDK pull command, which will be also using the watched project list. And this one will basically visit every directory of the listed projects for that specific server and pull the latest changes from upstream master and update your code on your disk to the latest. So this can be nicely combined with the build, so we can just do pull and then build, and your server will have the latest versions of the projects from the upstream repository. Another nice feature that is almost ready as well is creating and updating pull requests directly from command line. So with this command, OpenMRS SDK PR, you can, by simply specifying an issue ID, you can create a branch and push it to your fork and create a pull request. It is all done automatically through GitHub REST API and Jira API. This also will include preparing your commits for a pull request, such as updating to the latest version from upstream, and also squashing. It will ask you if you want to squash commits into one and do the squashing for you. And it will also verify that your all commit messages start from issue ID, so that your pull requests comply with the rules we have for pull requests. And also there will be the release feature. With OpenMRS SDK release, you will be able to release easily to bin tray. And we will also configure bin tray to do releases of artifacts which are released to bin tray to Maven Central, so that we'll have you have your project released to both bin tray, Maven Central, and also Maven, and also OpenMRS Maven Web, since this is just a proxy of Maven Central. And yeah, this is what I mentioned before. So setup will use initial SQL to speed up setting up a platform and distributions. And also we introduced some usage statistics into SDK. We'll periodically ask users to send us statistics about how they use the SDK, which commands they use mostly. And yeah, this will help us to improve SDK and focus on things that are used the most often. Quickly back to now yeah, and this call, if you have any
One question I had, Rafał, was the upgrade process. So if someone's going from their current version to version 3, how do they get there, or from 3 to 3.1?
Yeah, it's for most of the time it happens automatically, but it's with a delay. So you may wait a day or two until it's available on your machine, because Maven tries to send a request for an update to Maven Central and checks if there is an update available and installs it automatically. However, you can also force it to use the latest. And this is, you can find the exact command here. When you go to upgrade, it's basically what you really need to do is just append any command, any OpenMRS SDK command with -u, so that you force Maven to request the to check for the update and install it if it's available. So an example of a command is just help, and this should upgrade to 3.00, and then if the 3.1 is available, it should also work.
So if the next version's available and you don't do the -u, will you still get upgraded?
Yes, but it depends on how often your Maven checks for updates.
Okay.
So if you want to force the update, you just force it with -u. And if you want to continue, to use the older version of SDK, you can always do that, but it takes a bit more of typing because you have to specify the version like so. OpenMRS SDK. This is nicely. So, for example, if I want to continue to use plugins, OpenMRS SDK plugin, and I specify the version here and then the goal. So I cannot use the shortcut when I want to use the specific version. I need to use the full version of this command. This is the shortcut, but it will use the latest available version, and it will auto update at some point to 3.1, for example, when that's available.
To what extent is the SDK hardwired to MySQL?
We bundle the driver for MySQL and H2 database. And yeah, if we want to support other databases, we somehow have to provide a driver, a jar with driver class for the for different databases. Currently, the only way to do that is either OpenMRS API will have that driver, or some module will have that driver, or yeah, you can send a pull request to add that driver to OpenMRS SDK. Yeah, so this is OpenMRS SDK 2.3.1 running using the SDK. Running the SDK. Basically, when you run this command like this, your server will start in the background, and you will be able to connect to your Tomcat with a remote debugger from your IDE. Default port, I believe, 1044, or you can specify the port you want to use here, and then you will be able to debug using that port. Also, if you want to have a number of servers running, we support -d port, and you can want to run OpenMRS server. There is a bunch of different tweaks you can do to those commands, and I would recommend you to go to the SDK wiki page and explore it and find different options here. Also, in OpenMRS SDK 3.0, we started to support development of OpenMRS core. What it means, you can also run OpenMRS SDK deploy from the OpenMRS core directory, and you can also deploy it to your server easily that way, if you want to work on changes in OpenMRS core.
Cool. I get so at what point will Darius be like dependent on the SDK?
It's a good question.
Did we lose Darius?
Apparently, yes.
Yeah. And then I guess then the question is to what extent do Wycliffe, Willa, or Daniel use the SDK? And if not, what parts of their typical development workflow in terms of automation are annoying? I would think Willa, in terms of, I know one of the things for Ampath is you know, working with node apps and things like that. There's times where there's probably folks might create resources in Node when they probably could be better done as a OpenMRS module. I wonder if the SDK might lower the barrier for saying, oh, we want to just create a simple module to expose a new resource through REST, and how will the SDK help lower the barrier for that?
Yeah, so we currently have archetypes for just a basic module and for reference application. There's nothing that stops us from adding archetypes for different kind of module for web services. Yeah, so that's a nice idea, and we can definitely do. So adding a bunch more archetypes as a starting point, adding web services resources, or for development of Angular JS UI or React UI. Yeah. I envision this would go here under create project. We currently have only 2 options. We can add a bunch more.
Mark, I think to some extent, the reason we are adapting the Node applications as much as it is about the fact that it is a bit complicated or difficult to deal with modules, but I think choice and style. So unless you say let's support Node, OpenMRS Node more SDK, I guess we just choose to write Node applications. Whether am I audible?
Yeah, you broke up a little bit, but
yeah. Okay, should I? Hello?
Yes?
Yeah, I'm asking, was I clear or should I say?
Easier for you to develop Node.js applications than
Yeah,
OpenMRS.
yeah, I was just responding to Bart's concern that it appears as though sometimes we tend to say this application is difficult maybe to write things in the OpenMRS module, but sometimes it's just people are free to use a different technology like Node, and even though you might have a way that is simplifying the process of writing a module in OpenMRS, but they might still choose to go with a different technology because they are comfortable with it. So I was just, I was just raising that point.
Any comment? Or
Wonderful. I just wanted to thank you, Rafał and team, for the great work you're doing. Yeah, and I look forward to see a time when the OpenMRS day-to-day team actually finds that it's uses actually the SDK on a day-to-day basis. Yeah, but even if that doesn't happen, if it can simply do it for entrance, that would be exciting enough still.
SDK, Daniel?
For now, I've really not seen, maybe because I'm too used to the other way of doing everything. So much as in how it would actually simplify things for me. Not that whatever, but I think for somebody who is used to doing things and familiar with OpenMRS for quite some time, I think it's kind of
well, where I would look is I would look at what things you do regularly as you're doing development, when you're repeating the same actions over, when you're doing that thing that you know how to do by heart because you've done it so many times, but it takes 10 minutes or a series of commands, and wouldn't it be nice to get that to a single command? That's where I think the SDK could help even experienced developers, where setting up saying, oh, I want to take this module, I want to make or I want to clone this module, or I want to create a new module, and I want to be able to debug it and have it on this version of OpenMRS, and set up a that's where I or the kind of deploy test, dev deploy test cycle. Those might be opportunities where, if you look at what you're doing, you may be used to it, but you may be very inefficient.
Hello. This is great work, Rafał, and thanks for doing this. I think I kind of feel what Daniel is saying, but again, I wouldn't say I agree with it. I kind of had the same. I mean, this is the primary reason SDK up to now is because I guess I'm so used to the way I've been doing things, but I don't believe it's the simpler way. I think there's great benefit in being able to run one command, as Buck said. It's just that, I think we just need to get out of our shell and go, because I think the pain is now have get the commands I need to run to do something new, but it doesn't mean it's something more complicated. It actually simplifies. Probably one of these days try it out. The other thing I'm curious about is you're creating the modules. Like, for instance, when I'm to create that, I believe the OpenMRS wizard, Maven, and
that's great.
I have issues with that archetype. Up to now, I think it does some things, like it still includes files that we don't use. For instance, or the but it's false that you probably never use. Yeah.
Those
Normally
archetypes.
when I run it, I have to do a bunch of cleanups, and I think it creates services, and there's something it does with services. But anyway, the point is that there's some cleanup. I might have to try it and document what things it does wrong, so we can, fix in the Maven archetype. I think that's the only comment I had about it.
On our to-do for 3.1 release, I'll be working myself on fixing the archetypes and to update them to the latest conventions we have, like using liquid base instead of SQL diff and other things. So yeah, we'll do that with the next SDK release.
Yeah, I'll try it out and probably provide the list of the things that I think it does wrong. That is the archetype.
Okay, thanks.
But good job. Keep it up.
Rafał, is there a way for the SDK to know the user's OpenMRS ID?
No.
Okay, I was
that.
coming up with suggestions of things to do. I'm putting them in the notes, but one of them I thought was you could capture the user's OpenMRS ID when they first start, or allow them to just set it in a global config, and that might both facilitate some of the things that you do, and also would allow you to do things like give someone credit, like we could give someone a badge that they've used the SDK.
Okay.
And the other thing is, do you want to respond to Bach's question? Or was that even a question?
It was just a suggestion that,
okay.
Ways to try to help empower people and recognize where people are doing things.
So I see. First question. I might have two questions depending on the answer for the first question. Are you able to clone a new module project from the SDK?
Yes, we'll provide a way to clone a project.
Okay, and when you clone it, say I give you the URL, say from my fork, does it automatically add OpenMRS? Well, the one in the OpenMRS space as the upstream, or you have to do that manually?
Yeah, for clone command, you actually only have to specify the artifact ID or module ID, and it will automatically determine the URL based on what's configured in POM XML, and then clone the project and add the upstream as well.
So in the POM, you tell it what your fork is in GitHub, like where your space is. Is that what you're saying?
So Maven Central, just we can show it very quickly. This is, for example.
I believe whatever gets deployed to Maven is from the OpenMRS space. So you wouldn't find out. Yeah. So I guess my question is, so normally when I'm going to work on a new project, I fork it to my space, right? And then I clone from the repo in my space, and then I add the OpenMRS, the repo in the OpenMRS space as the upstream. So I'm trying to understand does the SDK take care of that? If I'm cloning a new module,
yes.
How does it tell this is the fork versus this is the upstream?
Okay, so we go to the Maven repository and we find the upstream repository in the.
Okay.
And then the SDK asks you for your GitHub username and password, and it forks the project for you, then clones the project and configures the upstream correctly. So it's how the clone command works in SDK 3.1.
So it will clone from upstream or from your fork?
It will clone this. Well, it will clone the fork and it will add the upstream repository.
So it will clone from here, and then substitute your username into for OpenMRS and set that as the origin.
So there's the typical pattern is to fork the OpenMRS repository into your own GitHub account and then clone from your fork of the module.
Yes.
Without knowing your OpenMRS ID or having access to your GitHub credentials, then I'm assuming if you just do a clone from the SDK and give it a module ID, all it's going to do is be able to search the OpenMRS repo, right? I mean, the OpenMRS organization.
It will search the Maven repo and the OpenMRS organization. And
okay. So most likely that's going to be an OpenMRS organization. It's not going to be your fork of that module. And so what I think Wycliffe was asking for is that the natural way of doing development is to fork the repo into your own copy and clone that. It's setting the upstream.
Okay,
so in theory, basically, when you take that URL, I mean, you can do it in two ways. You can either clone from that directly, and then take that URL and substitute OpenMRS, the organization, to your username, and then set that as the origin. Or you can do the substitution first and set it OpenMRS to your username, that is, and then fork from that, and then set
but
this original URL.
That won't work if you haven't already forked the repository, would it?
No, it works.
Not be explaining
what
it
matters
clearly.
is setting the origin and the upstream. It doesn't matter where you forked it from, as long as you tell Git what the origin is versus what's the upstream. It doesn't care where you forked it from.
Okay, I may not be explaining myself clearly, but the SDK will do the correct thing. So it will, once again, it will go to Maven repo and check this URL. It will ask you for your GitHub username. It will create a fork of this repo for you. It will clone the fork and the upstream repository. So
things that you can't get over there.
I mean, as long as that's the correct thing, I guess that's fine.
Okay, cool.